Hi everybody, I'm Hayley.
And I'm Kayli.
And today we're reviewing American Fiction.
A movie about being black and what that means for media. Basically,
yeah.
That's kind of the whole gist of it. Mm-hmm. I don't really have anything else to say. So you want to tell us what you thought about this one, Hayley?
I like this movie. I can tell you didn't like it. Not good.
That makes one of us.
I like this movie. I thought that it brought up some really good points on kind of, obviously on the side of the main character, but I feel like it also did kind of talk about the other side. That doesn't make sense. Hold on.
Great points so far.
Okay, do it again. I liked it. I thought it was really good about kind of exploring what black media does, or what the majority of it is, how people perceive, I guess, black culture and all that stuff, and then what, it was popular, all that good stuff. So I thought it had some really interesting points to make about that, and I thought it was funny. I thought it was witty. I really liked the film. I thought that I felt for the characters. The only thing is that probably a couple moments it was a little slow in some points, but other than that, I liked the movie. Kayli, take it away.
Listen, I saw this movie yesterday by myself, might I add.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the theater by myself. I was very proud.
That's exciting.
I brought snacks and chopsticks so I didn't have to touch my food. It was great.
That's really good.
This movie to me was a little bland, I guess is the best way I could say it without being too mean. It just didn't do anything special for me to even remember it after a day later. I just thought it did have funny moments, and I think it just got a little muddled. We had like 3 plots going on. It was the main plot of the book, the second plot with his family, and the third plot with like the romance. I guess that's how I would kind of break it down. But it just felt like the other lines were so surface level that I was just like, what's the point of us even seeing them besides like how it ties in to his like book and how it's affecting his relationship with others and how he's judging people. But I did like some of the conversations it brought up, but to me, it just was like, okay. It was just an average viewing experience for me. So yeah, I don't really have much to talk about, so I'm going to rely on you to talk about this movie.
Well, I was going to say, I think the reason why they had a couple plot lines going is because I think they were talking about the book, but I feel like they were also trying to make the point of this is a black story. Mm-hmm. So I do agree with I can see what you're saying of like, it just seemed a little all over the place, but I feel like in addition to making commentary about black media, it also was like, here is this black man, here is his life.
Yeah.
It is not involving gang violence or drugs or whatever else. It's just him. His sister passed away. His brother obviously came out and is getting a divorce. His mother is going through Alzheimer's. There's a lot of things that are happening in his life, love. So I feel like they were kind of also just like, here is a black story. Like, this is what people go through. And that includes people, obviously, other than, you don't have to be a specific race to go through it, but like, that's okay. This is a black person who's going through this black experience, which doesn't have to be the stereotypical version. So that's how I took it, is that they were kind of also giving you glimpses of that. But I see what you're saying. I do think that there were parts that were a little bit long, or a little bit of, because I guess I was getting wrapped up in the other storyline that I was like, oh, we keep coming back here. But I think that's what they were trying to do, is kind of also give you a non-stereotypical story. Because if you think about it, what other movie have you seen? I mean, there are probably plenty, but in terms of like that have just blown up, that are just about a black person who's just going through a black experience, that doesn't have to be super stereotypical, that has been made by a black person. Because I know Issa Rae was in the movie and she's had her show Insecure
and I know rap shit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I know that there's obviously stuff out there, but if you think of a lot of the media, it does sway.
Oh, yeah. I think we've talked about it before, how there seems to be an obsession almost with like showing black trauma, mm-hmm. where it's like the only times we see them is they're either slaves or getting beat or getting shot by the police or something super drastic and super mm-hmm. terrible. And it's never just like a boring story about their life mm-hmm. and it be normal. And I'm trying to think of like how this movie was trying to play it. And I'm trying to give its props where it's due, but I also don't want to like, I don't know, believe too much in this movie and like what it was actually doing. But so at the end, it ends, right? And then it's talking about the ending afterwards. So are we to believe like this entire movie was a movie within a movie?
What do you mean? Like at the end when he's directing it?
Right. When he's talking to the white director, and mm-hmm. it's like the story about what we just watched. So is that a movie within the movie? Is that what we just watched? Was the movie?
I think
within
we
the
did
movie?
watch his life, but I think that we were then getting the ending cut off, and then we went to him making a movie about his life, and they're trying to figure that part out. So I think yes, I think it was kind of a movie within a movie, if you will, but I think that was his life. Like, there wasn't anything that
was
didn't happen or was
except for
added
the
in.
ending.
Of course, when they're just making stuff up.
Yeah. I kind of lost my train of thought. I had a point and then it just disappeared. Dang, I really lost my train of thought. So I'll just cut to something different.
Okay.
It is based off of a book called Erasure. I forgot who the author is, but I'll pop it up here. But I was reading like the synopsis of the book because I've never read it before. But it is basically the same storyline where an author writes a book called My Pathology, and then it changes to fuck. And like in the book itself, it publishes like the entirety of fuck. So it's like within the book there's another book. So I think that's what it is similar to in this one, where it's like a movie within a movie, but also talking about a book as well.
Okay, so it's following that.
And so I thought it was I think it's a cool idea, and it has you kind of questioning like how you view media and if this is an important story. And so I don't know if the book or if the movie was trying to show a point of like, this is a Black story about a Black person not going through anything traumatic or crazy besides like regular life. And because he's not going through something crazy or traumatic, everything is like surface level. Is that like, is showing that part of it, or was it just bad movie making that it was surface level to me? Because I feel like we didn't get to know anybody. Like Tracy Ellis Ross character like literally died 10 minutes after seeing her, and I was like, okay, cool. And then the mom was like, I'm dying, I guess. I'm like, okay, cool. And then the brother's like, I'm gay. And it's like, okay, great.
You got to know him.
We got to know his preferences.
Yeah.
But it just felt like we didn't really get deep enough into anybody's like story for me to even like them or for me to even care what was going on about them. And so it was like, I just didn't, I guess it's just at this point, I was like, why am I watching this when I would rather be watching the story about the book? Because that was the more entertaining part of it all. Because to me, nothing else was going on that was important to me. So I don't know if that means that my white side is showing or...
Yeah. You wanted something a little more stereotypical?
I guess so. I was waiting for the violence.
Yeah, waiting for some gunshots.
Exactly.
Okay. I mean, yeah, like I said, I agree there were some like slower points, but I think it was that. They were like, here's also a story. I feel like it was more about his character than anything. Because they were also making points that he was so wrapped up in his own world and his own thinking and his own stubbornness that it was hard for him to connect with other people. So I think it was also him realizing that there was life going on around him, like his sister. Like, he didn't ever call. He didn't really come home. They obviously got along. They were making jokes and stuff, but then she passes away suddenly. And then his mom, like, and then of course she was the caretaker of everything.
Yep.
So then it kind of, he's realizing that there's all this stuff going on that he's been avoiding and that he's been not paying attention to and just not connecting with. So I kind of didn't see it as like we're supposed to get to know all the characters. I thought it was more kind of him and him trying to submerge himself with others and start connecting, because it did seem like he did disconnect, because then they had the wedding and he was really excited about that. Like, he was just kind of getting more involved, and then having to kind of step up a bit with the family. So I thought it was more about his growth than anything, but I could see what you mean about some of the characters.
I don't know if I agree with the growth part of it all, because we didn't see him in Coraline making up a song about Coraline. We didn't see her and him like reconnect after their argument about his book. We didn't really see like him, like even at the wedding, he like pulled away and wasn't involved. And first of all, what the fuck was a wedding? Like, what was the point of us? I was like, okay. I don't know.
You didn't care about their wedding?
No.
Wow.
We barely even got to see her. I'm like, I don't know her and I don't care. And I barely know the main character and I still don't care. I really just want to hear about your book. And I don't know if that's showing like, if that's the point of the movie, where it's like, hey, you're only caring about like how white people perceive Black people and Black stories and this type of dynamic, but you don't care about real Black stories. I don't know if that's what the message is. And it's like, I guess I could agree with that sentiment. I didn't care about anything else that was going on in this movie besides the main plot line that I thought we were supposed to be getting from based on the trailer. The trailer was like, he's going to write a book and some shenanigans is going to go down with him trying to portray himself as a whole other person, a stereotypical Black male who's like a convict or a fugitive, one or the other, both, I guess. And and he's, playing into this whole mess of media where he's helping perpetrate the whole thing that he hates the most, which is like white people only want a certain type of Black story. And I really did like the the conversation him and Issa Rae had at the end, and I thought they both brought up some interesting points with that one. What'd you think of their conversation?
I like their conversation because I feel like she did bring up some good points about like he did not read the book. So although surface level, it did seem like it was probably one of those books that was just pandering to a white audience. She was like, you didn't read it. There were some real stories in there. Because I think the movie was trying to make sure that it's not one-sided, because obviously there are stereotypes and not all Black people go through all the same things, but that's also not to say that there aren't some things that do happen to the Black community, if that makes sense. So I think that was kind of the balance. It's not to act like nothing ever happens, or that there aren't some systematic things that have been done or other things, but I think it was, that's not, people aren't always just their trauma or anything like that. And then there are people who don't experience that. You know, it's not everybody's story. So I think that was a good point. He has a great point of let's not like just push this image about all Black people and like how things go. But her point was also, but there are some real things that do happen. So that's why I like the conversation, because I kind of pushed back on him a little bit, because I think he was definitely high and mighty in his position. And she was like, well, no, some of these are direct quotes from people that have real lives. And he was, oh, didn't read the book. Oh, so it was a little bit of a humbling experience for him. So yeah,
I did like the part where she was like basically talking about how other authors, white authors, can talk about the lower class people and talk about their experiences, but they're not seen as like pandering to a certain type of like audience or whatever. Yeah. But when she does it, then it is a problem. And so I kind of I've never heard that argument said before. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And her whole line about potential is, when you see what is not good, I can't say it. Yeah. I don't remember the line verbatim, but it was a good line. I was like, I like this. And I think that conversation is important, because I don't think, I read from the director, like he had an interview with somebody saying that he didn't want it to seem like there was a hero and a villain in that conversation. He wanted people to see that both sides had some points to be made, and not that there was like a right type of Black person. And so I think that is, an important conversation to have. I just wish that there was more of that going on.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought, there would be more of that going on instead of a wedding between two people I didn't even really give a shit about. And like, there was just, I guess there was so much going on in this movie, but it didn't go anywhere with the storylines. That's what bothered me. It's like we're wasting time on subplots that we could be talking about something else.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's what bothered me the most, because it's just like we didn't get all the conversations I was really wanting to have. But I mean, we get snippets and like little witty remarks and everything like that. Like there was that scene where he's watching TV, and in the background it's like, we're talking about Black stories and the diversity. And then meanwhile it's like them being chased by police, them being slaves, them doing this and this and this, all the bad things. And it's just repeated. And it's like, oh, we love diversity. And it's like, oh, LOL, that's funny. And like all the other comments were like, they're funny. But it's like, can we get like another good conversation? That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, I did feel like it was cut short, because they were getting into it, and then the other lady walked in.
What are we talking about?
And then that was it. There was no other conclusion. And maybe that's the point. There is no conclusion. It's just a conversation. And to your point, who's right, who's wrong. Not necessarily an answer, but it's maybe somewhere in the middle. So I guess it wasn't going to answer anything. Maybe that's not the goal. I don't know. But I do wish that there were a little bit more of their dialogue, because I felt like that was probably the most important part, was two Black people talking about it. Yeah. Rather than him talking to everybody else about it, except for another person who's also a writer, who's
doing the same thing he is.
Exactly.
Apparently.
Yes.
We don't know exactly what her book was like, but from the excerpt that we heard, it sounded a lot like what he was doing.
It did.
So for her to be like, I just thought it was doing this and this, but for her not to see it in her own book is very interesting as well. But I feel like there was a missed opportunity with Coraline too. And he was like, people like you, blah, 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 which was, I get the argument and like why it made him look like a shitty person, because he's so disconnected from literally everyone else. But I feel like that could have been another discussion that he had with somebody who's not a writer, but somebody who enjoys reading. And if she would have talked about why she liked it, what she thought about it a little bit more, I feel like we would have gotten more of that important discussion about how Black people view Blackness in the media. And but instead we got nothing.
I see what you mean, because had they kept going, They could have maybe brought up some other points, especially because once again, now it's two black people talking now. Somebody, a black person who, it's not a white person who loved it. It's a black person who loved it. So what did you like about it? Did you see yourself in any of the characters? Did you just enjoy the book on a surface level? You know, were you even thinking about race? You know, that would be an interesting conversation to have continued. So I agree with that too. Yeah.
It's just, instead of that, they're like, you deserve to be loved. It's like, well, I don't. It was like, boo, get out of here. But it's like, I get it. I feel like there's just two movies in one, and like neither one of them satisfied my urge to watch. You know what I mean? It's like we got the story of Thelonious Ellison or whatever his name is, and we got his whole backstory. But then we have Staggerly and his story, and it was like we didn't get a great conclusion for either one, which was a little unsatisfying.
But didn't he say that at the end when he was talking about the ending of the movie? He's like, no, let's just leave it at that. And then I couldn't really tell like exactly what point he was making, but it was kind of like, well, the whole point of this is not to give people what they want. So I don't know if they did that on purpose to also kind of be like ironic in the fact of you're not going to get that answer, because his point was people just want to read what satisfies them and what makes them, you know, this and that. Because even when James was talking about it, he was like, well, what did he get back together with the girl? Like, what happened with this? What happened? I was like, I kind of think that was the point, because he had just said he wanted to leave it at that. And then, of course, the director was like, no, that's not a movie.
Exactly. It's not a movie.
Hey, that's why he makes the big bucks.
It makes good for books where it's like a cliffhanger where you can imagine what happens after that. But people, when they watch a movie, they want to be satisfied. They don't want an open ending thing unless there's going to be a sequel.
Why are there so many open-ended movies?
That's a good question.
I'm tired of those.
See?
Not with this one, though, because I felt like what else did I need to know?
Yeah.
What could I not have imagined?
I just thought it was a little,
you know what I mean?
I thought it was like a little abrupt the way that it ended. And then it was like, oh, we're having a meta conversation now. It's like, what the fuck is this? Can we get the movie? Like, I would have been Kayli, satisfied if it ended.
Put down your own desires of just basic stereotypical movie things.
I would have been satisfied if it ended, if it faded to black whenever it did the first time. I would have been fine. I'd be like, oh, okay, that was interesting. Like, we don't know what's going to happen next. But instead it went to this whole fucking meta conversation about blackness in the media and how it had to only be good whenever he got shot up at the end. It's like, okay, like I get it. But what about the actual story then? So that's the movie story. What about your story? And it's just him driving off with his brother that he barely likes.
They're coming together now. They're developing that relationship.
They're trying
because they're the only ones left.
But yeah,
it wasn't too complicated of a movie.
No, I guess it's more of just opening up that conversation about, is it right to continue making content like that? Does it help or hurt black people in the end if we're making things that pander to white audiences and make them feel good about reading about black trauma or watching black trauma? Because it's like, who really likes those things?
Clearly a lot of people.
Because there was that one show, I think it was called Them. That was just traumatic.
I didn't watch that one because people were telling me some things and I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
I think we've had enough slave movies.
Yep.
I think we've had enough 1950s and 60s movies and shows. So anytime it does seem like every time there's a story like that has to do with the past, they always have to bring in the race and the struggle. It does seem like every movie, it can't just be a regular movie about regular people going through regular stuff. At least the mainstream. I know back in the day they had plenty of movies like BET. They had a ton of stuff that had like black characters that weren't about that kind of stuff. But I feel like definitely kind of now, like especially the big movie stars, like if it's gonna be like Denzel Washington or Will Smith, either they're in their own movie and they're the main character generally, but like something else is going on, like it's either they're a spy or there's something else about their character. Like rarely is it a group of I feel like I'm not explaining this well, but like rarely is it just a full cast of black people and does not have to do with like oppression or something, or have to do with something of that. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of a mainstream movie that has a full black cast that isn't about a historical movement, slavery, oppression.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there is. Maybe I'm just not thinking of it right now.
Put it in the comments.
Black Panther doesn't count.
Right.
Superhero movie. I mean, I guess it does, but
Okay.
that counts. I don't know why I would think that it didn't count.
I don't know, because you don't like superhero movies.
Maybe that's it.
Even like there's this movie called Sorry to Bother You. Have you seen that one?
No.
He like works at a call center, and he has to use like his white voice in order to like move up the ranks.
Okay, I think I remember hearing about that one.
Yeah, that movie, I mean, it ends absurdly, but it's also about oppression, but oppression in more than just like race. It's also oppression in like class and stuff like that. So,
But is that because they're black and poor?
yeah, it turns out they are black and poor.
Okay.
But
I'm like, but then it has to do with that, unless there's other races, I guess. But
There
I'm like,
are
but then
other
it's
races,
like
but
poverty and all the time.
It is about that, but so is kind of this in a way a little bit. Like we're getting the perspective of like people who are making money. They have 3 kids that are doctors. I think their dad was like also like a doctor as well. I don't know what the mom did.
Yeah.
They got a maid for how long? They were going broke, but they were also very affluent at one time. So we did get and we kind of talked about that, how he's like been locked up in his ivory tower for so long, where he's not connecting with the people on the streets anymore. So, but I did like Sorry to Bother You. I will say.
Of course you did. Sure, you loved it. Yeah, I'm really trying to think if there's a movie.
That movie was fun.
Because even we got and you hear me whine about this all the time. We got our first black princess.
And she's a frog.
Lo and fucking behold, but not even that. Lo and behold, she's in, of course, what it was like the 1940s, 30s, somewhere in there. And a woman of your stature. Like the white men were like, you can't have this place because you're black. And I was just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
We can make anything up. This can be anything at any time. It can be a magical place. We can completely make up this time and location. But we decided to put this black princess in the middle of Jim Crow law era. And where was she? Louisiana?
Yeah, I think so.
New Orleans?
I think that's where they were.
You kidding me? I don't know. I was just so disappointed. I'm like, we could have imagined anything. It's Disney.
Yep.
We couldn't have an African princess with her cute little animal. They run around and they have to go save whatever and do whatever. And she has like powers. She's like a princess. We couldn't do that. No. And then she's a frog the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, I was just very underwhelmed. Of course, the only princess that has to do anything with race at all, it's got to be the black one. I don't think there were any other stories of any other characters where race played a part in their story. Quickly.
Not that I could think of.
All the other princesses were just living their best life.
Except for Cinderella. Not until the end.
She was fine. You know what I mean by living their best life. They're chilling.
Except for Sleeping Beauty. She was asleep the entire time.
Snow White,
she was asleep. She got attacked by a witch.
You know what I'm saying, Kayli?
Beauty and the Beast. She was trapped with a crazy maniac.
She was trapped with a
handsome fella.
Beast. Okay. I saw a video where they were joking about how when you turn into a human, she was like, ugh.
I thought he was cute as a human. You didn't think he was cute as a human?
He was cute, but I get it. You fell in love with the Beast, and now you have like a 5'11".
Oh damn! Not bringing up the height.
Come on now. He was like 8 feet. Now he's like, I'll be so sick. I'm like, oh.
You would want an 8-foot man? You would want an 8-foot man?
8-foot beast, baby. Get it right.
Girl, you're done. You're done.
Anyways.
But yes, I think that's the point of movies like this, where it talks about like, oh, so like the only time we have a black person that's a princess in Disney, it has to be, we have to talk about race.
Racially driven.
Yeah.
We have to talk. Yeah. I just was very disappointed with that. And we still have not had another black princess since. I mean, unless you count Ariel in the
I wouldn't, because
film,
it's just a remake.
but it's a remake. Yeah, I'm like, I want an OG princess who's just black. She can be black. It's fine. She can just be black. I think that's why I like when I watch foreign films so much, because it sounded so dumb. I think I watched a Korean film and I was like, it's so cool to see them in their own movie doing their own thing and their own culture, and it's just regular. That makes sense. Like, there's no emphasis on them being Asian. I was like, I just really enjoyed it. I got to see their culture basically through the lenses of their own media, and it wasn't touched by anything other than the people who live that life, right? So it's not like an American movie who made it, or Americans made something about Koreans. It was like, no. So sometimes when I watch films that are from other countries, I enjoy watching them because I feel like it's not tainted with the lenses of some other,
it's like, yeah,
what do you call it, motivation or anything.
Yeah, it's just, like, this is to show how diverse and inclusive we are.
Yeah, like it's just a movie. It's just through the lenses of their whatever. And I just think it's great. And it's just whatever storyline it is. And I just
Yeah.
think it's cool. I think it's just people just need to allow themselves to explore different stories. I think it's just everybody.
Yeah, I agree.
I think there's so much out there. There's probably a ton of movies that just aren't mainstream that are everything that we want.
It's true.
That
we
we
just gotta
just don't know
broaden our
about.
horizons.
Exactly. There's a lot of stuff like that. So I guess it's just giving more light into those kind of stories.
Don't know if I want to keep this in, but how do you feel about people who are women writing experiences about men, or men writing about women experiences? How do you feel about that?
I always thought that was kind of weird. Like in the movie, she was saying, "Oh, you wrote a woman character very well," and I was thinking about that because I'm like, that is very odd. Like if I were to write a story about a young man, I mean, obviously, I think that you can, but I always wonder how you come to
why do you want to go through that lens?
Yeah, like what would make you want to go through that lens? And then how do you feel like you can make it as authentic as you can be? I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're all people. So it's not like something crazy that you're doing. But I think it is interesting. Like, especially if a male writer is writing about a female character and he's describing maybe a sex scene or something. And sometimes you can tell there's a little unfamiliarity there with maybe the woman's experience in that. So I don't know.
I agree. I think whenever a man writes, in books, especially when men write about women, but they use it as like a ploy for them to basically sexualize women because that's what they want to do. They're horny. And so they're like, her boobs are bouncing voluminously. You know what I mean? It's like women would never talk about their titties like this. But it's interesting that you brought it up because women don't go around thinking about their boobs all day unless like they hit them. So it's like, I think there's like a certain times when that happens, that's when it's very obvious that you didn't really want to write about a woman because you thought that lens was important. You just want to write about it so you could talk about her titties.
Do you have a book in mind?
Not in particular.
Oh, okay. I was like, I feel like this comes from a place where
no,
you're like...
not in particular. But there are a few male authors that I enjoy, and they write primarily in women perspectives. Like, I like Grady Hendrix. Some people don't like him. Apparently, on TikTok, people were tearing it up. I was like, I like his books. He wrote that one book, The Southern Guides Book Club.
Oh, I did like that book.
See, I thought it was a good time. Riley Sager writes mostly through women perspectives as well. But I never get the sense that they're degrading women or that they don't like women or they're like shitting on her just because she's a woman. Instead, it's like, it seems like a more organic experience. So I think when people can write or show other perspectives that are not their own, but they do it in a way that's respectful, I think you can tell the difference between when it's not done like that.
Because if you were only restricted to writing about your specific
it's gonna be boring
race and your specific age and your specific gender, like that would obviously be very limiting. But I think to your point, it just depends on what you're writing, why you're writing it, what the motivations are. Because I do agree, sometimes you're reading something and I'm like, who wrote this? Like, this is off for me. Now, I have one experience and maybe another woman and or man can relate to it. So then again, that's an opinion, I'm sure, but I see what you're saying. Yeah. Interesting.
It is very interesting. Race, gender, everything is so complicated these days. And I think that it's beautiful that we all get to share our experiences. And I just wish that some experiences weren't the highlight of a culture. Like, Black people are slaves or they're from the streets.
That's you got two.
You can pick a lane.
Yeah.
Do you want to be police brutalized?
Police brutalized.
Exactly. Or do you want to be a slave? Pick one.
Golly, there is so much more to Black culture that I think can be revealed that doesn't have to be any
name
of those
one
things.
other thing
What?
of Black culture, Haley.
Well, what I'm saying
Since
is...
we're more than slaves.
Apparently not. Gee. I think there's other things. Well, if you think about music, the relationships, like if you're making like a drama, let's say it's a drama, just happens to be a Black family. I feel like Black culture is different than the other cultures. Of course, you have different ways of communication. There's different, the way they talk, the way they form relationships, just in general, it's a different vibe when you're having that. So I think just having that enough is okay. We don't have to
bring in the slavery, bring in the police violence. We need it all.
Every time. I think sometimes movies are an escape for us to be able to enjoy a story. And I feel like I don't always want that to be in there. Like I think I spoke about this before, but I was watching Bridgerton and I really liked it because it was just a bunch of races. Have you ever seen Bridgerton? Okay, well, it's a bunch of races. So it's like you have people who are Asian in it, you have people who are Black, there's white people. But yeah, so I was so excited. I'm like, great. It's just a movie. There's different people in here. And then all of a sudden, I think I noticed it more in, I think they had it a little bit in the main Bridgerton show, but then in the next one, it's about the queen because the queen is black. So it's her story. But of course, when she becomes queen, she's so dark. I didn't realize she'd be so brown. The only reason why they're marrying them together is because they're trying to join cultures. It started becoming about race. And I remember even in the first show, one of the women was like, our queen has allowed us positions now, you know, and I was like, oh, we couldn't just have a moment. We couldn't just have a show where there's races and it's just cool and it's fun, but now we have to start talking about the black people and these people and that people. I mean, it wasn't so much, but it was like races becoming a part. I'm like, okay, so let's keep that, but how about like the white folks are the ones that have to earn their place in society? Let's switch it up, since it's a completely fictional land. Like, none of this has to make sense.
It doesn't have to be
at all.
Yeah,
none of this is accurate at all. So let's go ahead and just keep that going. So I feel like sometimes I get really excited and then I'm like, here comes the race part. We have to make it traumatic.
Were you having a good time?
I was having a good
too
time.
Damn bad.
I was like,
time for you to think about your place when it comes to race.
I know, like, not even in fiction can you escape.
No, you constantly have to think about racism. Sorry,
you can't do it. I'm like, can we just for once? So if there's a show that just has a bunch of races and we just don't talk about that, and it's just a good show, I would love it. Not to say that I can't. There's not like. I'm okay with a little bit of stuff here and there, but like when it's just every time and it's just honing in, I'm like, I can't enjoy this.
I get you, girl. I get you.
I'm sure we can go on and on and on.
On and on and on. But
anyway.
Any other thoughts, opinions about American fiction?
No, I mean, I think I agree. I think overall, I mean, it wasn't like the most engaging, enthralling movie ever, but I think I did like the conversations it was bringing up. And I think I liked how even the movie started to just brought up some conversations and kind of things that maybe you don't even notice. And you're like, oh, that is true. Like, I mean, obviously I think we know that in general, some movies tend to be more stereotypical, but I mean, I think it was just a good conversation in general, because maybe some people may not even realize. They're like, oh, that is true. You know, once you really look at it like that, like, that's maybe not a good thing. So I thought it was good. I thought it was really well acted.
I think so too. Everybody seemed to be like a legitimate character. You know what I mean?
Everybody, yes, I will say everybody seemed very authentic in their character. Even the white people that were cracking me up because they were so white. But yeah, I really liked. So I say in general, I think it was well acted. I think that they had some. I think it was a well done movie. Yeah. Now, in terms of how interesting the storyline was, or was a little drawn out, or maybe we didn't have all the conversations, then I do agree with that.
What do you give it?
I think I'll give it a 3.
Oh, okay.
I give it a solid 3. Yeah. I think it was good. I do agree with some of your points as well. I think it could have been a little bit better, especially with some diving into some of the more deeper conversations. But yeah, what about you? What do you give it? 2?
I give it a 2.5. It was an average experience for me at the end of the day. It just didn't do anything spectacular. I did see somebody review it and they're like, this isn't what did they say? This is like a critique on the woke people, the people who think that they're above it all. Like, I guess that's kind of talking about this whole diversity and inclusion part that they were trying to do in this what is it called, the coalition thing they had to be judges and everything. Like they were trying to be diverse and inclusive, but they ended up just still pandering to the exact same
and
audience.
Not listening to the black people in the room.
They said black people's voices are important, except for you two.
Anyway, number 1.
So I don't know. I thought it was clever. It had funny moments and it had clever points, but I just wish it dug deeper into some of those moments. But yeah, 2.5.
I think it's a fair assessment.
Thank you. I didn't think I was too harsh on it.
No, I mean I agreed with a lot of what you said anyway. So I'm like, yeah, I could see coming out of it. I was like, I could see why people may not like that movie. I think I enjoyed it. I thought it was very smart, if that makes sense in certain ways. I thought it was well written and well acted. So I'll give it, especially some of the stuff I've seen recently. So
you've been watching just trash lately?
Not trash, but you know, sometimes I go turn a show and I'm like, okay, not a lot going on back there. But I thought it was interesting that you said that a lot of people think that it's talking about like the woke culture, but I feel like it was also kind of flipping it too. I know we did touch on that already, but like sometimes we're in the movie and there were white people in the audience, of course, but I know like sometimes he would make some of the jokes about like some of the woke jokes, and I can tell the white guy behind me was just cracking up like, oh yeah, ha ha, because you know anytime there's a black person who's like against all that other stuff. I feel like certain people ride for them because they're like, yes, we have a Black person who doesn't want that woke stuff. You know what I mean? And they kind of take that and run with it. But I liked how the movie kind of was also like, well, you are a little bit on your high horse, and you may not be connecting. Not that he didn't have some points, but I did appreciate how when he was having that conversation, it was like, all right, we do need to reel it back in because your experience is not everybody's experience. Yeah. And there is some truth to both things. You know what I mean? So I did like, so I don't think that this movie was just completely attacking the media on everything. I think that it also was showing that he does not connect with people. Yeah. He is a little bit high on his horse. He does seclude himself. So yes.
I think this has nothing to do with what you just said, but I do agree with everything that you said.
Thank you.
One of the funnier parts for me was whenever they were talking, it was him and his agent talking to those people, and the guy's like, he's like, oh, sorry, your dad.
Oh my God, that was so, when I tell you I died, I was like, that was uncalled for.
So uncalled for. Even like with his girlfriend, Coraline, who's like, yeah, some crazy dude went over there in Blue Springs.
I am not sure why she said that at all.
I don't know either.
Unless she thought they just moved in.
I think that's what it was. But even if that was the case, why would you tell people that story right when you first meet them?
Yeah, that's
girly
like really
That's at least a 2-3. You know, you wait 2-3 visits down the road
and
be
you
like,
say, you know, I heard.
Yeah, but that's not the first line you say.
She made a joke,
and that's like, yeah, that was my dad.
And
like,
she was like, damn.
And they still dated. So,
moral of the story.
Everybody gets a second chance.
So she needs to give him a second chance.
Not after that behavior. He was acting way too crazy.
He was a little much. But given if he explained himself, it makes a little bit more sense.
But why did he not ever like open up to anyone in his family?
I think he was embarrassed. I think he was actually embarrassed about the book. And when people liked it, I think he's like, why do you like this? Like, he's so ashamed and embarrassed. He doesn't even want to tell the people he knows about it. So I think he was kind of keeping it a secret because he didn't want anybody to know. But I think that people did like it. So other people, it's not a big deal. But to him, that is like a stain on his work. Yeah. He has done so much.
Like he was saying with the Johnny Walkers, he's like, just because you wrote a red doesn't mean that you don't have a whole bunch of blues. And it's like, you can write a shitty book and it does well.
You can. Make that money.
Why not? But then it's like, then we go back to the conversation of like, but now are you perpetrating the whole mess?
In that activity? Yeah.
Exactly. And he was over here being in the stereotypes, trying to walk differently, talk differently.
Running at the ambulance siren.
Not that boy buying it. He's like, oh my God, he really is afraid of the police.
Authentic.
Any other closing thoughts?
No, I think we're good.
Perfect. Well, if you like average viewing experiences, then you'll love our Instagram at Hayley and Kayli. We also have a TikTok at Hayley and Kayli where you can watch some other content. We have like just chatting stuff where we talk about romance novels. That's fun. And that's about it. What else do we have, Hayley?
We also have an email at presspodcast@gmail.com. So you can email us any movies that you've been watching, your thoughts, questions, comments, concerns.
And we have audio too on Spotify and on Apple. So it's at Press Podcast as well. Yes. But let us know what you thought about this movie in the comments down below.
And my camera went off, so go ahead and say bye for me.
Next time, we'll be talking about some other movie, and you can reach us on Instagram and see what we're watching next time. Something like that.